Okay. Hello, welcome to the 10th October Women in Product Toastmasters Club meeting. I'm your Sergeant at Arms, Shruti Patra. Today, our theme is product strategy. The essence of product is choosing what not to do, which is the most important aspect of building a product. So let's hear more about it today. At this time, I would like to introduce you to our president, Erica Tamburo. Erica, uh, please take it up.
Thank you, Shruti. Happy October. How is it October? I am excited it's October and fall's on underway, that time of change. And I like times of change because that gives us the opportunity to reevaluate and set new goals. The theme for this month is gratitude. I thought it would be good to just take a pause and be grateful for all the friendships we're creating, our new network, and everybody that has joined the club and wants to focus on making themselves better and help others along the way. So with much gratitude, we start today's meeting. We only have a few club announcements. I just wanted to remind you all that you are always invited to club leadership meetings. Our next meeting is next week. We meet on the second Wednesday of the month. If you would like to join us, please let me know and we'll send you an invite. We would love to see you there. Come check out what it is that we do that keeps the club running, and see if you would like to take on a role next year. We would love to have you. In February, club contests will be around that time, and I encourage everybody to start thinking about a speech that they would like to enter into the contest. The contest was super fun last year, so please, even if you're not sure that you're ready, now's the time to just hop in and start doing stuff and learning. The winner of the club contest gets the Women in Product Toastmasters Club speaker slot at the Women in Product conference. So that's pretty exciting that they would do that for us, and a great opportunity. Today, stick around. If you have any questions, we'll have a short Q&A question and answer after the meeting. All right, so now we take the opportunity to welcome guests. Switch my view so I can see our guests. I see Karthikeyanee. Am I saying that right?
That's right. Hi, very good morning to everybody here.
I'd like to welcome you. If you want to share just a little bit with the group how you found us and maybe what your role in product is.
Sure. I work as a technical product manager at Visa. I constantly follow Women in Product at Facebook, the group that's been in Facebook, and I always used to read the inputs that different product managers provide. I have always been excited to be part of this Women in Product, and I've been part of the panel to evaluate submissions last year. And off late, when I was going through this chat, like the posts that people used to put on a regular basis, I was curious to see what this Women in Product Toastmasters Club is, and why didn't I know about this all these days? So I immediately took action, and I wanted to be a part of this group.
So happy you found us, and I hope you enjoy today. So you'll see all the little roles and all the opportunities we get to practice all our different speaking skills, speeches, some impromptu sessions as well as evaluations, which is really very important for everybody to keep growing. You'll be invited to participate in table topics if you would like to. If you would prefer not to, then you can let our table topics master know that you would like to not participate. So, but we encourage you to come have some fun with us.
Well, definitely, I would love to, and I'm looking forward for this. Thank you.
Yes. Do I have any other guests today that I have not found yet? Let's see. Okay.
Hi, Erica. This is Siri. I joined as a guest too.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Looking
Welcome
forward to today's session.
Would you like to share a little bit about yourself? There you are.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. This is Siri. I'm from New York City, and I work for Morgan Stanley as a product manager. And I want to mainly be part of this community to improve my communication skills and also learn product topics from all of you. So I'm very excited for today's session.
It's a perfect place to get all that. I hope you enjoy today. And like I mentioned, if you'd like to participate in table topics, please do so. It's fun to just hop in. And
Sure, of course. Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, so I am going to hand it over to our Toastmaster of the day after I introduce her. Ashley Lawson is a digital process owner at Keller Williams, based out of Austin, Texas. She works with cross-functional teams to identify and implement new product features and enhancements that enable real estate agents to improve their day-to-day business practices. Outside of work, she enjoys reading, learning to code, and coffee. And she's done a fabulous job getting us all ready for today's meeting. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the introduction there. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone. I realize we were spanning many different time zones, and so I wanted to take a moment and just acknowledge everyone here. Also give you guys a huge shout out for being here today and spending your time here. You're here because you want to improve something, and I'm elated that you're here and that I get to be your Toastmaster for today. As our Sergeant at Arms had already stated, today our theme is product strategy. And so typically for me, I immediately kind of jump to the product lifecycle, but it's actually a small component to a bigger piece of the puzzle. So what we're going to do now is just unpack that a little bit and kind of really think about product strategy from a larger viewpoint. So when it comes to product strategy, we may want to is kind of the UI and the UX that a user is going to be experiencing. We may also want to think about the features exactly, or what kind of problem we're going to be solving and how's that going to be implemented throughout the features that we decide on. Also, the quality of this product. If we're starting off with an MVP, we probably want to identify those core things that are going to be most useful for that user. And then as time goes on, maybe refine and fine tune as needed on that product. Something else we want to consider is branding. It's hard to make a product and create a product and then no one knows about it. So at that point, you're probably wanting to pull in your marketing team so they can actually get the word out there. Also, maybe our product isn't for everyone. So who's our target audience exactly? We probably want to think about that a little bit in depth. Again, our product isn't going to be for everyone. So we do want to be strategic and think about who specifically we're thinking about first. And then lastly, it's also going to be positioning, kind of going back to the market aspect of who's this product going to be for, where are we targeting, but also how is our product really going to look in the market? Is there a cost associated to this? Is it a 30-day free trial? These are some of the things we need to think about. So we're thinking about in terms of product strategy overall, the design, the features, quality, branding, target, and positioning of this product. This can be used for entrepreneurs who are probably wearing multiple hats and doing a lot of different pieces of actually creating their product strategy. For small and medium-sized businesses, it might look a little different. They might be able to spread that responsibility and resources throughout. But when you're thinking about your larger companies, your Apple, AECOM, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, they probably have a very rich product strategy and also a lot of resources and a lot of time to develop that. They're not in any rush. But whatever the case is, however you want to use it, product strategy is there just to give you a blueprint of an overall view of how you actually want to shape and put together your product. Once you have your blueprint, then you can focus on the tactical aspect of implementing and executing your product strategy. And it's not a sprint, it actually is a marathon in most cases. So it is going to take a little bit of time to get there. And lastly, The other thing about your product strategy, you also want to think about your return on investment, because time is money, but also think about your resources. And it's a three-pronged approach when you do consider your overall product strategy. Ultimately, how is time, money, and your resources going to be used to develop and put together your product that you're introducing to the market to solve a problem? All right. I feel like I've been chatting quite a bit here on my end, but we do have a very fun agenda for you guys today, and we are going to go over a couple of housekeeping rules, and then we'll go ahead and kind of do a round robin of our meeting roles for today, and I will be calling upon certain individuals just to give us an idea of what that role is. So we did introduce something new here with our speakers. So after our speakers have spoken, we'll go ahead and ask the timer for 1 minute on the clock, and that'll give our evaluator some time to gather their thoughts, jot down some notes, and go ahead and get prepared for their evaluation later during our meeting. So that gives you guys an opportunity to think about those questions or something that was of interest to you, and actually reach out to our speakers in real time and give them some feedback or ask a question specifically. But if you do want to give your speaker some feedback, I ask that you do put that in a direct message to them. And if you don't feel comfortable raising your hand and asking a question, you can absolutely reach out to them in a direct message and also give them a question that way too. All right, let's go ahead and hear about our meeting rules for today. So first, I would like to ask our general evaluator to hop on and tell us a little bit about her role, and then also the other evaluators on her team today. Marguerite, would you mind coming up?
No, sure, thank you, Ashley. So as the general evaluator for this meeting, I'll be paying close attention to everything that's happening in the meeting, and then sharing, and so from transitions to all of the other sort of speeches that are given that don't have a specific evaluator. So anything that doesn't have a specifically assigned evaluator, like grammar or all counts, I'll be paying very close attention to and evaluating, and then giving a summary near the end of the call. And today we have two speeches, so we have two speech evaluators, Amy Kirkland and Rosie will be doing our second speech evaluation. And our, Ashley, did you want the all counter and grammarian to introduce themselves, or shall I?
Absolutely, if they're ready. If not, we can go ahead and do an introduction right before they hop into it later in the agenda today.
Well, I'm ready to introduce myself. So this is actually my first meeting here, but I've been assigned the grammarian role, and my name is Paisley, by the way. So for the grammarian role, basically the role is meant to help club members to improve their grammar and vocabulary. And one of the notable aspects of this role is to provide the word of the day, which I came up with last night, and I guess I'll get to it later. Is that right, Ashley, or do I present it now?
Actually, Paisley, we would love to incorporate that today throughout our speeches and throughout our responses. So if you don't mind, I would love to hear the word of the day.
Sure, okay, so I came up with it last night, and I actually didn't know that it was supposed to relate to the topic. So for future reference, I will definitely make it more honed to the topic of the day. But I do think that it can be applied. The word I chose was adroit. Adroit, and it means having or showing skill, cleverness, or resourcefulness in handling situations. So an example would be, the CEO has been praised for his adroit management of the company's financial recovery. So hopefully by some stretch, we'll be able to incorporate it in the meeting today. Not directly applicable, but hopefully we can find some application.
Paisley, that is a brilliant word, and I think we'll be able to loop that in today, especially when we're talking about strategy and being agile. So perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Toastmasters, I can go next.
Perfect. Go
I
ahead.
am the R counter of the day. The purpose for this is to note words and sounds that are used as a crutch or as a pause filler. So during the meeting, I'll listen for overused words, including and, well, but, so, you know. I'll also listen for other filler words, which include and I'll take note of these during the meeting, just like I use the right now. And at the end of the meeting, I'll report the number of times that each speaker has used these expressions. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Toastmasters.
Awesome. Thank you, Rishu. And we just have a few more roles to go over. So next we do have our timer. Samya, if you want to go ahead and give a little bit of an explanation about your role, that would be great.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters. My role today is to keep track of the times of all of your speeches. We want to start and finish our speeches on time in this meeting. The green card indicates when your speech, when the minimum time is met. The yellow card when you should start wrapping up your speech, and the red card when you have reached the time limit. As the timer, I'll be timing the table topic speeches, the standard speeches, and all the evaluations as well. The table topic speeches last 2 minutes. At 1 minute, I'll raise the green card. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, I'll raise the yellow card. And at 2 minutes, I'll raise the red card. I don't think we have any icebreaker speeches today, so I'll skip that. The standard speeches last between 5 to 7 minutes. At 5 minutes, I'll raise the green card. At 6 minutes, I'll raise the yellow card. And at 7 minutes, I'll raise the red card. And the individual evaluations are between 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, I'll raise the green card. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the yellow card. And at 3 minutes, the red card. You don't have to remember all of this. You'll see it on the screen. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Samya, for giving us an overview of the timer responsibilities and also helping us keep track of our time. Got to work on those internal clocks. We do have, and I just once again said an so Richu, if you want to count that against me, I'll go ahead and take that lump there. Carrying on, we'll go ahead and hear from our vote counter, Amelia. And I apologize if I said your name incorrectly.
That is a correct pronunciation. Thank you so much, Madam Toastmaster Ashley. I will be the vote counter for today. At some point, you'll be sending in your vote for a table topics winner, and I'll be keeping track of those votes and announcing a winner for table topics later on. And you'll just be direct messaging me those votes on Zoom.
Thank you, Amelia. And last but not least, we are going to be hearing from Sarah, who is our table topics master for today.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm really excited about this. Table topics, you think of this as almost like an elevator speech, if you will. This gives us an opportunity to be able to speak on our feet, and that's very important in our work as product leaders. I have a little bit more of an intro that I'll speak of when we get into that section, and I will look towards our timer to help us out to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves in that section. We'll also, as Amelia just mentioned, we'll also be sending our votes for best table topics to her. So back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. We've already heard from Paisley today in terms of our word of the day, and I want to go ahead and bring her back up one more time to go over that definition. 1, so we can all hear it again. 2, so we can get familiar with it. And 3, so we can use that during our speeches today. So Paisley, if you don't mind coming back on screen and giving us that definition one more time.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So the word of the day is adroit, A-D-R-O-I-T. It's an adjective, and its definition is having or showing skill, cleverness, or resourcefulness in handling situations. So an example sentence is, the CEO has been praised for his or her adroit management of the company's financial recovery. And that's adroit.
Perfect. Thank you, Paisley, for doing that. Guys, we've heard this multiple times. Let's be amazing product managers in the making, or current product managers that actually implement this word today. We are going to go ahead and move forward in our agenda, and let's go ahead and get to our first speaker of the day. I'm excited to introduce Erica Tambiero. Erica is one of the founders of Women in Product Toastmasters Club. She is the current president, as well as a multi-passionate woman in tech. A bioengineer by training, she's worked in the healthcare field for over 21 years. That is insane. She loves working closely with users to identify their needs and create technologies that transform. And she currently works for Smart Girls and is excited about inspiring the next generation of girls and boys into STEM. Erica, please take it away.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Women in Product Toastmasters and guests, thank you for being here today. Do you remember how fascinating learning was when you were younger? Do you remember a moment when you made some discovery as a child that you were just blown away by? Maybe you discovered that bees pollinated all the plants and made flowers and tomatoes possible. Maybe you discovered that pigs don't sweat and you were like, what? That's crazy. If you remember such an experience, would you mind sharing that in the chat? Now, as an adult, do you remember the last time that you learned something and exclaimed, wow, how cool? With excitement, with a huge smile. Do you remember something? Do you remember feeling as you did as a child, full of wonder and awe? If the answer to either of those questions is no, then I'm going to ask that you, after this meeting, go buy a ticket to the Science Center, History Museum, Art Museum, make an experience, give yourself time to have an experience and rediscover that. Why am I asking you to do this? Because learning should be joyful. And I want you to remember that joy. Because if we as adults can tap into the joy that we had experienced as learners, then that'll help us excite and inspire the next generation of scientists, businesswomen, artists, accountants. I am Erica Tamburo, product manager at Smart Girls, and I am excited about inspiring the next generation of young girls and boys into STEM. As you know, STEM is a huge industry, and there are so many fascinating statistics to share. I encourage you to look at cyberstates.org if you're interested. In 2021, the projected rate of tech employment is 12.4 million. And that's across 585,000 tech businesses in the US. And of all these jobs, software programmers, web, and Q&A is the leading tech occupation. Some pretty exciting numbers. But what you may or may not know is that there are two big issues. Number one is our educational system is not keeping up with the demand. And number two, STEM has a long way to go in terms of diversity. Arthur Herman in the Journal of American Affairs published some statistics. 10% of science and engineering graduates globally are only produced by the US. 10% of the global graduates. That is not a lot. In addition, only 20% of US high school graduates are even prepared to tackle STEM learning. That is also not a lot. We need to do better. We have some work to go in helping students become adroit STEM professionals. And in terms of diversity, STEM diversity numbers may not surprise you, with only 26% of women in tech as compared to 49% overall. For Black and African Americans, only 8% in tech as to compare to 13% overall. And for Hispanics and Latinos, 7% as opposed to 16%. And as you all know, as product leaders, diversity in voice and solutions leads to innovation and better products. So there's an opportunity to make a huge impact early in the educational pathway. And here's where some numbers get even more interesting. Research has shown that by the 4th grade, 30% of learners lose interest in STEM. By 8th grade, 50% lose interest in pursuing a STEM career. So it's really critical to expose students early for 3 reasons. These are their formative years. It prepares them to understand STEM later in their academics. And the third is great experiences lead them to seek more experiences. There are so many ways people are working to impact STEM. Many brilliant and very passionate people are working on curriculum development, teacher professional development, product development, formal and informal learning initiatives. A lot of wonderful work, a lot of wonderful people. At Smart Girls, we're passionate about increasing diversity in tech. Sharmi, our CEO, developed a robot for doll-loving girls to learn coding by playing. And our new product line, Smart Buddies, includes diverse boy and girl characters. What I'm particularly fascinated about is the idea of helping young students build STEM identity through identity-forming artifacts. And so what is STEM identity? This may be the first time you've heard of it. People that consider themselves as science learners and develop an identity as someone who knows about, uses, and contributes to science is somebody that's formed a STEM identity. And what we hope is that through the use of our characters, the dolls, their stories, their context, their community-based storytelling woven into robotics curriculum, will allow students to envision themselves in STEM careers, understand how it relates to their everyday life, and excite them about learning more. I find this a really exciting time to be in educational technology. In the future, I hope to speak to you more about identity formation because I know some of you are interested in social change and community improvement, and helping others find and form their identities feels like such an important, rewarding endeavor. And let's see some of your answers really quickly before I am stuck and I can't see the chat. Discovering recursion in computer science. Kirsten, yes. The first time you saw oil float on water, Rishu, that's a perfect example. Thank you so much for sharing, guys. First time growing a bean plant, yes. So if you don't remember the joy of learning, I encourage you to take an opportunity to find more experiences and remind yourself. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Erica, for that lovely speech of finding the joy in STEM. At this time, our lovely timer, if you could go ahead and put 1 minute on the clock for us so our evaluator can collect your thoughts. And at this time, to everyone else who's on this call, I'm going to open it up to you. If you have any questions for Erica that you want to put to word, and it would be super helpful also if you can just raise your digital hand so that way we know to call on you and bring you up on screen so you can ask that question in real time. And Lori has a question. I saw her hand shoot up first. Go ahead, Lori.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Erica, I'm curious, what is the age group today that is typically using your product line?
Ages, so we're in grades 3 through 6. And because I'm still learning like what ages correlate to the grades, because I'm not a mom and I have never been paying attention to that for a long time. So I think it's 8 and 9. Am I close, mothers on the call?
I'm totally with you. I literally don't know either. Like, I don't know.
I'm with y'all as well. So if anyone wants to like validate in the chat, please do.
Ooh, pro tip from Monique. 6 years to the grade. All right, that's something I can actually remember.
Our 1 minute is up.
Lovely. Thank you, Samia, for that timer there. And I did see one more hand go up with a question. Erica, do you mind if we?
I don't mind. I think we have
question?
time today since we only have these.
Fantastic. Let's see. Shruti, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Erica, I loved your speech. Just one question: what is your product strategy for reaching more diverse target audience? As you talked about, making sure that you tap into the diverse, users that you talked about. Yeah.
We have been reaching out and building relationships with organizations. Some really great organizations in New York City who have a mentoring program that's been really successful, as well as in the Southeast, Georgia Tech. We have a collaborator down there that develops curriculum and delivers it, MPD, to those who we want to impact the most. And the other part of our strategy is developing more content within our product that is race-centered, right? So instead of wiping away people's identities, we want to build more identities in it. So which means more stories about the characters, more stories within contexts that students actually live in. So, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's give a digital clap or actual hand clap for Erica and her speech on finding the joy in STEM. We're going to go ahead and continue to move forward here in our agenda for today. Next, we are going to have Kirsten up. She is a new Women in Product Toastmaster, and she's coming to us from London in Europe to present her second speech on the visionary communication path. And her speech for today is product risk management tips. She's especially looking forward to your feedback and opinions from both aspiring and experienced PMs here on the tips in her speech. Kirsten, go ahead.
Okay, can I get a thumbs up first just to check everyone can see the slides? Awesome. Okay. Alrighty, so yes, I am hoping to speak to you today, if I can actually operate the PowerPoint successfully here, about risk management when building tech products. Okay, so what am I worried about in terms of risks? Well, I'm kind of thinking about the future. When we're building those tech products, is there a possibility that we could be creating Skynet? So for anybody who doesn't know what Skynet is, this is some very, very smart and intelligent robots who decided that they would be better off by themselves and actually went to war with humanity. Or could we do something else with those tech products and build something like WALL-E? WALL-E, who actually worked for many years to try to bring humanity back from the brink of destruction and environmental collapse and literally save humanity. Which of these things could we be risking producing, and which are we thinking about? I know we talk a lot about the risks of things like Skynet, but I think sometimes we miss out on talking about the benefits that we could get from producing things like WALL-E. Okay, so what does this mean to us in product? So I have heard people tell me that future state doesn't matter, because in product, basically, this is our world. We are producing a better toothbrush or a better toothpaste. Well, yes, we certainly hope we're producing a better toothbrush and a better toothpaste, but scale is something unique to the world of tech products, where when you look across product managers working on a particular product, those product managers together have huge impact. Those products, especially tech products that they create, can literally change the world. So when you're looking at every single product team through every single product manager's decisions, let's say to make a better toothbrush, you could actually have all of them thinking about how could we make toothbrushes that actually care about the environment more, that don't use plastics and things like that. And when all of those folks are starting to think about that future, we can literally make a better future for everyone. What does this mean for us in terms of timelines? Am I talking about something generations away? Yes, I am. But it actually matters now. So the hours that we spend now in product teams, yes, turn into meetings. The days turn into tasks. Those weeks turn into sprints. And all of those sprints start to turn into months. And those months, we start to create features, new toothbrushes. In quarters, we start to be talking about product iterations, the environmentally friendly toothbrush, the much better one, the one that actually works. In years, we start talking about investor returns, all those funds and resources that we got to actually build that product. Are we returning it? Are we continuing to work with that investor? Those years combine into decades. And in the decade level, we actually start to make significant changes to our industries. And incredibly, across just a couple of decades, so 2 or 3 decades is basically a generation. And then we start to create the future that we actually want to see. Especially if you are early in your product career, this is something that I wish folks had actually said to me. It's super, super important. And I want to make sure that it's said to everybody, which is to stay hopeful and dream bigger. You might not actually be authorized right now to be articulating a vision for your team a year into the future, but build towards that future you want to see. Start thinking about whether or not you are actually going to be creating WALL-E. Okay, so why isn't everybody doing this now? Why isn't everybody in product talking about the WALL-Es that they want to work on and avoiding how they're going to build Skynet? Well, it's super, super risky, especially when you're kind of talking about these timeframes. And managing risk is incredibly complex, especially in tech products. So as someone who's basically worked with big data, machine learning, quite a lot of machine learning, and also now with AR and VR, I would like to share from my experience some risk management tips that I have learned the hard way and that I've learned from others, including folks I've been mentoring, that will hopefully help you, that will hopefully help your team, and hopefully help your product. I'm actually doing this across 2 of our Toastmaster meetings. So I'm going to share the first batch here today, and then take some feedback and share the rest with you a second time. So the first one is to love your space sustainably. If you love your space, you will naturally think holistically about risks in that space. And if you do it sustainably, as mentioned earlier, you will adroitly be able to do it for the marathon. A really great check-in here is to look back and see, maybe at that quarter or month level we were talking about, how have you spent your time? Are you increasingly eating into overtime and burning yourself out? Or is it a sustainable pace? The next is to not be afraid to learn and believe in yourself. I have never met the perfect PM, and I don't think they exist. And when you're dealing and learning from risk as you go forward year on year, all those learnings are making you better and better at that particular space you've chosen. Also, for yourself, think about the focus that you're providing to the team. Less is more. A great check-in here is the team at the water cooler actually answering debates about features based on the vision that you provided. Are they quoting back that focus accurately? If not, it might need a bit more clarity. And first one on the teams is that great quests build and attract great teams. So if you're doing a check-in here, check in with recruiting. Is the quest and the vision that you've provided attracting great people interested in that space to manage that risk with you? If so, awesome. Thank you very much, folks. And I hope to share the next tips at our next meeting based on your feedback.
All right, thank you so much, Kirsten. Sorry it took a second to get myself on the screen.
No worries.
Thank you for going through that speech. Soumya, at this time, if you can go ahead and put 1 minute on the clock to let our evaluators gather their thoughts, put their notes together. But I want to go ahead and open it up to everyone else here on the call. If you have any questions for Kirsten, please go ahead and raise a digital hand so that we can call on you and bring you up on screen and you can ask that question in real time. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you're more than welcome to direct message Kirsten a question. Also, if you have any feedback you want to share with her, direct message, let her know, and we'll go ahead and take it from there. And I do see one hand that is raised.
Hello.
Karatha Kennedy.
Hi.
I think I may
Yes,
have
I'm
butchered your name, and I
Karthikeyan.
apologize.
You spelled it right. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Kristen. Great speech. In order to assess the risk for the future product that we build, at this point, we may be completely unclear of how it is going to be delivered. But at this point, when we are assessing what are the different aspects or features that you would look upon, okay, these are the areas or the touch points that I need to focus on to assess the risk and guide in the right track so that these risks can be, or the issues can be avoided while we deliver the product.
So two things there. One, just as you're focusing on the key benefit, it's super important to focus on the key risks. So what is actually going to have the greatest probability and greatest impact should it materialize? It can be easy to suddenly get sucked into managing all the risks, and you're looking at like thousands of risks, and then you actually stop working on the product because you're just basically handling risks. There's some great models as well that will help you identify risks, particularly for the types of risks I'm talking about, which is impact from the products that you're building that you might not have expected. So I think it's called PESTLE is one, which is like political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environment. And you kind of look at risks from those perspectives. A lot of good models like that. But the main thing in terms of the day-to-day, I would say, is focusing on impact and probability and tackling those major risks. I hope that helps.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great information. Thank you.
No worries.
And our time is up.
Thank you, Soumya. And before we move on, any other questions for Kirsten? All right, Kirsten, thank you so much. You are all done here. All right, moving on. I do want to take a moment and recognize that we don't actually have a third speech today. And our third speaker was going to be Sheena, but she had to tend to a family emergency. And I want to take a moment and recognize that today is also World Mental Health Day. And I know that's a big proponent for her. And she definitely, during, I believe it was the prior meeting to that, had us do a breathing exercise. And so I wanted to take just the time to recognize that and also let you guys know that today is World Mental Health Day. So please be mindful about taking care of yourselves and making sure that you're all good and you're taking that time to really get yourself together, make sure you're relaxed and happy and you're taking care of yourself. Without further ado, we are going to get into one of my favorite parts of our meetings, aside from the speeches, which were phenomenal today. We're going to get to our table topics. Sarah, if we can go ahead and bring you up on screen, I'm going to turn it over to you to ask us some very stimulating and fun questions.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Hello, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. There's an ancient Chinese military strategist and philosopher named Sun Tzu, and he once said that strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So with that said, I think a number of project leaders or product leaders can attest that this is actually true. And in my strategy in the past, I attempted to be adroit by centering on how my product differentiated against the competitors and how I would solve some of those problems through my own product. But today, it's all about you, and it's about your strategies. And I can't wait to learn from all of you. For those who are transitioning into product management, I would like you to think of these questions as an opportunity to talk about, if I had this opportunity, this question, how would I handle it? And to our guests, as Erica had mentioned earlier, your participation would really enhance this meeting. So I highly encourage you to speak. And remember, everyone, to send your vote to Amelia for the best table topic speech. Soima, before we go forward, and I apologize if I slaughtered anyone's name. Soima, would you please give me verbal notice once we get closer to the allotted time for our speech for this section? I'd appreciate that. So our first question, it's about inherited product strategy. Some teams find themselves managing products or services where someone else has created the initial strategy. Has this ever happened to you? And if so, did you scrap the strategy and start from scratch? And if you've never experienced this, how would you handle the scenario? And I'd like to call on Svetlana. So Svetlana, again, the question is, have you ever found yourself inheriting someone else's product strategy? And if so, how did you handle that?
Thank you so much, Madam Table Topics Master, Sarah. Thank you for that question. Absolutely. In fact, I am finding myself in a bit of that situation, or a similar analogous situation to that now in my new role. And I would say that there are 3 steps to dealing with it that I'm planning on taking. So for one, if a strategy exists, it most likely has roots in the historical context of that company and among the teams that have been working on it. So I would say that it's very important to review and understand the reasoning behind the current strategy. And for me, one of the ways that in which I've been handling this is really digging into the data around clients' needs, our customers, as well as the sort of supply side, as well as digging into reasoning across cross-functional teams. And with all of that data in place, the next step that I would recommend would be to socialize your findings, right? So explain what it is that you are learning, what you have learned, and get your stakeholders basically on board. And then the third step would be to actually start coming up with some recommendations around what changes you might want to see in that strategy. And from there, you would hopefully, with the stakeholders you have already onboarded to your kind of revisions, you would start to put down on paper what the new strategy is and get the team involved in implementing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Svetlana. Thorough explanation. Thank you so much. I'm taking notes as well, so I appreciate that. Something I can use when I go back to work. Our second question is about avoiding stale strategies. So persistent reevaluation helps to avoid stale strategies. How often do you revisit your product strategy, and what steps do you take to challenge your original assumptions? Again, if you've never experienced this before, how would you avoid stale strategies as a product manager? And I'd like to give this question to Lori Edwards. So again, Lori, I'm going to restate the question. How do you avoid stale strategies if you've ever experienced that in the past? And if you haven't, how would you do that in the future?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. This is a fantastic question, so thank you for this question. I myself am a little bit in Svetlana's shoes. I've been in my current role for about 6 months now. So I inherited a strategy, and I work in higher education. So all of you can imagine, since COVID started, the higher education world has basically drastically changed over the course of the last 18 months or more. So what we've realized is not only did I inherit a product strategy, but that strategy has become very stale very quickly because the world's not even the same as it was in late 2019. So some of the steps that I've taken are kind of similar to Svetlana's actually, is, at least every quarter, staying in touch on your market and making sure that you understand how your landscape is shaping is one of the easiest steps you can take to kind of see if you need to revisit your strategy. A strategy can become stale, if you get, say, somebody comes in and disrupts your market, or if the market itself is just changing, right? Like a lot of schools have closed in my case, people are not going back to school. Some students started at school, now they're back at home. So it's just like never ending and never changing. So some of the steps that you can take to revisit it is, one, try to keep as much as you can on a pulse with your marketplace, like what's happening in that. Don't be afraid to revisit it, right? Don't be afraid to challenge it or find things as you're interviewing customers that come up and say, hey, do we need to think about this differently? And the third step I would say kind of goes to Kirsten's speech is dream bigger, right? Is your strategy too small today? Do you need to go and chase bigger boulders and get to a place faster because of your resources or whatever you're seeing to stay on top of it? So if you do inherit a strategy or you do have a stale strategy, make sure to go back and revisit it. It's nothing set in stone in product. We change our directions quicker probably than any other marketplace. So yeah, at least every quarter, go back and look at it, but stay on top of the market trends.
Fantastic, Lori. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great point. Every quarter. And keeping a pulse on the marketplace. Definitely very, very important. Thank you for that answer. Our next question is about the use of personas in strategy. So as usage of your product or service grows, it may turn out that the people using your product may not exactly match the initial crop of personas that you used earlier as part of your strategy development. What's your experience with user personas? And have you ever found an entirely new market that wasn't part of your original plan? So for those who have never had an experience with this, what would be a process that you would use to understand or find your market? And I'd like to give this question to Monique Tucker. So let me restate the question. Monique, can you tell us about your experience with user personas? And have you ever found an entirely new market that wasn't part of your original plan?
Thank you, Sarah, for that question. So I more recently was working on an internal product, and with our user personas, we knew that we had analysts that were using our product, and we also had different engineers. And as I started looking at exactly who was using it, I found a new market, which was my actual engineering group. So I wasn't really thinking of them as the users because they were not using the product to do analysis. You can do like market simulation with the product. So once I brought them into the group as someone that was using the product, it made me think about how they were challenged with almost like customer support for the product, and the way the product worked influenced how they were able to help our users. So once we started thinking about them as being in the market or a part of the user personas, I felt like things got easier for them. We started to give them more time to actually work on developing the product and less on being kind of product support for it. So I think once you have to revisit who your users are, you can like uncover things that you didn't really expect. And I think that was a really interesting exercise that happened in our area. So thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Thank you so much for that. It's a great point. Sometimes we find out that there are people and markets that haven't used that product, and we can actually use that perspective for future development and future insight. So that's an awesome response. Thank you. Our next question is on strategy or vision. So there's an old adage, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And in product management, I'm finding throughout a number of networking groups that I'm part of, there's ample discussion on what really comes first, the product vision or the product strategy. So I'd like to give this question to one of our guests, and forgive me if I mispronounced your name, Karthi Kayini. Karthi Kayini?
Karthi Kayini.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. So what's your take on this?
I would say product vision and strategy should go hand in hand, because in my recent days, I am working on an internal enterprise application for Visa, where we are focusing on what is the product. We are trying to compare it with the existing product that we use, what the limitations are, and how should I build a strategy for the product which I am building for the company by itself. So using that experience and the limitations that the current product has, we would want to build a solution that is capable to deliver the functionalities at a global level, not limiting by region. So the strategy is to ensure that this application is able to handle all aspects. People from different regions, the internal customers from different regions are able to. So with a high level vision, when we start deep diving into what the strategy and the vision should be, I always feel that we need to have a consistent check on both and work in parallel on both in order to make the product successful and launch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good question. Yes, or very good answer, I should say. It does go hand in hand, and sometimes it's interesting the conversations that will come out of that on side chats. So thank you. Another question that I have is about weak spots. I call them weak spots. So according to Mind the Product, there's an article on their website about 4 ways to level up your product strategy. They say that it's especially important for B2B products to create strong relationships with our go-to-market teammates and invest time in understanding why certain deals were lost. So from your perspective, why is it more important to understand weak spots than knowing which features competitors struggle to catch up with? And I'd like to give this question to Meghna. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Forgive me if I didn't. So again, the question is, how important is it, or based on your experience, how important is it to understand weak spots in a product versus which features competitors are kind of struggling to catch up with on your product?
Thank you, Table Toastmaster, for this question and for the opportunity you have given me to speak. It has come at the perfect time. I am working as a product manager for a B2B enterprise software. It's an asset management software. And what I've realized while working as a B2B product manager is the strategy and the approach towards managing a B2B product is very different from a B2C or any consumer facing product. With a B2B, so one thing that we have to keep in mind is the decision maker is not necessarily the end user. So there is an element between the actual consumer of the product and a product manager is this one decision maker who sits and who decides if this product is worth paying money for and if I should buy them. So with a feature focused approach, what happens is you are trying to cater only to the end user, whereas so that's where I think the approach when thinking about catching up with the competition, that's where the whole idea behind catering to the needs of these decision makers is lost. And that is why it is very important in my perspective as a B2B product manager to approach it from two different lenses and to stay in touch with the sales team, with the go-to-market team, and try to understand what goes into the decision-making process of purchasing or evaluating your product and what's important to those decision makers. And then also think about what's the day-to-day or the jobs to be done for the end users are, and then trying to find out if your product strategy and if your features or your vision aligns to that, instead of thinking as a competition alone and what's out there in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Magna. Fantastic response. I appreciate that. Yeah, you brought up something that was very unique, the difference between B2B versus B2C and the strategy vision that's used to look at those two different product lines. So thank you very much for that. Our next question, it's regarding OKRs and KPI, so key performance indicators. In a product tank that I recently listened, it was a recorded event out of Austria, Vienna, Austria. A director of product management stated that OKRs help to provide clear objectives to support product strategy. What is your perspective on the use of OKRs or any type of KPIs in product strategy? And I'd like to give this to Siri, who's on the iPhone, if she's still there. Siri, I can restate the question if you're still there.
Hi, Sarah. Yeah, that would be great. Could you please repeat
Okay,
it?
sure. Fantastic. Yeah, Siri, my question is, what is your perspective on the use of either OKRs, which are objective key results, or any type of a key performance indicator in the use of developing your product strategy or just the progress of your strategy?
All right. Thank you for your question, Sarah. I would like to take a go at, I will try to answer the question as simple as possible. I believe that OKRs or KPIs are very important to understand how you're doing in the current market situation. And the very first thing before even setting a product strategy is to understand how you can evaluate if it would be successful or not. So defining the KPIs itself would let you understand what exactly are you looking for in terms of results, and evaluating it day to day or even weekly basis. It would give you an opportunity to reset some of the things that you're doing currently and to help get to where you are. And I also believe that OKRs are not just useful for product strategy, but even it's a way to evaluate your personal goals too. So I do have a set of metrics to evaluate my improvements as well in my personal area too, without which I think any vision would be lost. So I think it's a great way to track your progress towards your end goal.
Thank you, Siri. That's a great point too. OKRs or just key performance indicators being used in our personal life, even outside of product strategy. So thank you very much for that response. I have a couple more questions, but I'd like to get a time check to find out where we are with relation to the agenda. Do we have time for one or a couple more questions?
We have 3 more minutes, I think.
3 more minutes. Okay. So I do have, let's see, I have another question. Thank you so much for that time check. There's a gentleman that I just found out about named Gibson Biddle, Biddle. He's on gibsonbiddle.com and he writes on Medium. He provides a 12-part series on product strategy, and I counted roughly about 10 strategy frameworks that he provides along with step-by-step exercises. So my question is, what framework do you use, or can you recommend a couple of strategies, a couple of frameworks that you've used to build your strategy from scratch? And I'd like to give this question to Rishu. Rishu, let me rephrase the question for you. What type of framework have you used in the past to build strategy? Or if you haven't built strategy, maybe you've heard of a couple that you can recommend to us.
Thank you for that question, Table Topic Masters. I find it very interesting because just the previous Toastmasters sessions, I gave a presentation on PM frameworks. So let's find out if I remember any of that. So there are a couple approaches. Of course, there are industry standard frameworks from Pragmatic. There's one from Product School. In my opinion, the way I look at product management frameworks or just strategy frameworks are always from the top 5 that is applicable to your three stakeholders. 1 is your investors, 2 is your customers, and 3 is the future of the product, right? So the future of the product also ties in together the people who work for the company, the resources, the intelligence, the IP in the company. So while looking at strategy, these are 3 key pieces, and I take a first principles approach to understand what stage of is the company at? Is it at growth stage? Is it a startup? Is it at a stage where we have to pivot and probably diversify and target newer verticals and newer markets? So that falls under the investor stakeholder. The second being customers. Are customers really early customers? Should we give them trial? Should we start charging them? How do we charge them? Are they ones who are interested in licenses versus SaaS, pay-as-you-go approach, and so on? Third one being product and people in the company. Are the people who are working for this company interested in what they're doing? Are they intelligent and the skills that they have are relevant to the product or this problem that we're trying to solve, right? And I would never say the people that we have are right or wrong. It's just, are they the right people to solve this problem? So these are the 3 things that I consider in terms of the basic framework required to solve a problem for the company.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rishu. My husband's in the background and he was like, wow, that's a great answer. So there you go. So thank you so much to all of our participants in Table Topics today. For those who were more of an audience, please provide your vote to Amelia for best table topic response. And now I will hand it over, I believe, to our Toastmaster, Ashley.
Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. That was absolutely brilliant. And those are some very poignant and very adroit questions. Also, the responses equally as good. Well done. Just briefly, before we go, I know some of us are going to be sending in our vote over to Amelia. Direct message, please, and who you're going to be voting for. But I do want to take a moment and run down everyone who gave a response. Svetlana, Lori, Monique, Garth Kenny, Meghna, Siri, and Richu all responded today for our table topics. If we can go ahead and bring up Marguerite, she is going to give us a report based on all of the speeches, how we've been speaking today, and she is actually our general evaluator for the day, and she's going to have a team of people giving us some feedback on how we've been doing. So Marguerite, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Just realized I was on camera. That's some movement going on behind me. So thank you for that handoff. Madam Toastmaster. So to start our our evaluation section of the call, I want to call on our evaluator for our first speech by Erica. Amy Kirkland, could you provide your evaluation?
Thank you, Marguerite. Erica, what a lovely speech. I really love, you always give such great speeches, but I really found this topic super interesting and you're so knowledgeable on this topic. And I think it's really relevant to all of us. I love how you asked questions at the beginning and solicited responses in the chat for from the audience. And you know, I was also watching the audience during your speech and saw lots of smiling and nodding and things like that. I was also fascinated by all the stats that you had, although there was some that I thought were maybe not referenced the actual like where the stat came from. Like you, for example, said research shows, yada, 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 but like what research shows. So it'd be great for you to incorporate a little bit more of where your sources are coming from when you're doing a speech like this, which is research based. But I thought you had so many great stats. I did also lose a little bit in the numbers of all the stats. I think you had mentioned before your speech that you talked about maybe you were going to do slides. This might have been a good time to do slides so that you could like put those numbers up, or alternatively, maybe in doing this type of speech, maybe if you're going to use less numbers so that the numbers that you do use are more impactful. So things to think about. I mean, I think it was great. I don't think there was anything, I think I just got a little bit lost in the numbers and there's kind of a lot of them. So I think something that I was thinking to challenge yourself a little bit more is your closing could have been a little more impactful. I like how you circled back to the chat and reminded people, you know, to take the time to learn and discover and things like that. But I felt like that was one point where you maybe lost your strength of your confidence a little bit and got a little bit softer in your closing. So there's one thing to work on, is just kind of try to focus on making that closing really strong and impactful. But overall, I think you had really good confidence, and I've noticed throughout your speeches, you've gained more and more confidence over the time of doing Toastmasters. Your gestures and your eye contact were really great. And again, I saw lots of smiles and nodding from the audience. So I think overall you did such a great job, and it's so great to see how much your confidence is blooming and getting better with every speech.
Thank you, Amy. That was a really thoughtful evaluation of a really thoughtful speech. And now I'd like to call our second evaluator, Rosie, to give her evaluation of Kirsten's speech.
Yeah, thank you so much. Kirsten, it was great hearing your speech today. As an aspiring product manager, I loved the slides and how you were able to adroitly capture our interest from the beginning. I thought you did a really great job in terms of taking us through the path of your speech, through the use of the PowerPoint, but also how you broke it down. I really like the way that you had these different stages in your speech and were able to give us, you know, a really great picture of what was going on, and it really kept us motivated and, you know, really attentive to what was going on. Yeah, I absolutely loved the advice that you gave us at the end as well, in terms of things to consider as we go forward in our careers, whether we're aspiring product managers or current product managers. You really hit the nail on the head with your clarity, your audience captivation. One thing that I would recommend is eye contact, which I know is incredibly difficult when it comes to like virtual, and even myself right now, I'm looking at the other way instead of the camera. it's probably something that we just do here at Toastmasters because we're online. So I'm sure your in-person speeches are way better. But that was the one thing where I could see that you were kind of looking at a second monitor or something, but you were kind of going back. So it was nice that we were able to make eye contact when you were looking at the camera, but there were moments where it definitely felt a little bit more rehearsed or like you were reading off of something. So that's one call out. The second call out is there were moments where you did use vocal variety, and it was really great because it kind of brought us back in with your laughter and the jokes that you made. But then there were other times where it kind of started to flatline, and so definitely your content was really inspiring. It was very interesting, but I would just say more eye contact and perhaps a little bit more vocal variety. But overall, I think you did an amazing job. I believe this is your second speech, so you're a pro. And so with that, I'll pass it back to the general evaluator.
Thank you, Rosie. Another thoughtful evaluation. And now I'd like to call for reports, starting with our grammarian, Paisley.
So I'm not too sure, this is my first time in the meeting and as a grammarian, so I'm not too sure what report I'm supposed to give, but I will say that I noticed that both Sarah and Rosie, and I'm sure other people use it as well. I'm just, sometimes when I get focused on a topic, I'll be thinking about it and will miss people using the word, but both used the word of the day, adroit. So I was really happy to hear that. You guys did such a good job of incorporating that. Is there anything else I'm supposed to report on, or is there something I was supposed to fill out?
Well, generally, I think this group is pretty good with grammar, but I think for future reference, you can also share any sort of interesting turns of phrase that you notice, and but also exactly what you reported on, which is the use of the word of the day. Yeah, and I know it's hard to, it's definitely hard to focus on those things, especially when the speeches are so engaging.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Thank
Paisley.
you. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Paisley. And now we'll call for the all counter report from Rishi.
Thank you, General Evaluator. There were a few, I would say a few many us and ums used, but the conversations and the speeches were so brilliant that I did get caught into listening. So I might have undercounted, which is always great, right? I'll go with the person in order. So Shruti started out and there was one there was also a repeat in use. I noticed that. Erica, 3 us, 4 ums. This was during your housekeeping talk that was early on. During your speech, it was beautiful. Nothing that I noticed. During the Q&A, you had 5 ums. So I'm guessing it's to do with free speech. Karthikeyani, you had 5 ums. Siri, 5 ums. Ashley, 1 Marguerite, 4 us. I counted my us and ums, so 1 and 3 ums, or maybe more. Saumya, 4 ums. Amulia, 1 Sarah, 2 ums. Paisley, 1 Kirsten, 1 and that was not during your speech. Again, Svetlana, 4 us. Laurie, 2 ums. Monique, 5 ums. Meghna, 2 us. Amy, 3 ums. Rosie, 2 ums. And I also noticed you knows, which were 2. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rishi. That was a really thorough report. And our final report is from Soumya for our timer.
I can go. Both the prepared speeches were within the time limit. Erica spoke for 6 minutes and 46 seconds, and Kirsten spoke for 6 minutes and 52 seconds, as were both the evaluations for the speeches. Amy was under time and she gave her evaluation for 2 minutes and 46 seconds, and Rosie gave her evaluation in 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Table topics. Svetlana and Lori both were over time, as well as Richu, but that's great because I wanted to hear more from you all and did not want you to stop. Svetlana, you spoke for 2 minutes and 8 seconds. Lori, you spoke for 2 minutes and 17 seconds, and Richu spoke for 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Other speakers who spoke within time were Monique for 1 minute and 57 seconds, Karthikeni for 1 minute and 30 seconds, Meghna 1 minute and 50 seconds, and Siri 1 minute and 20 seconds. And that's the time report.
Thank you, Samia. And I guess it is now time for me to share my general evaluator report. And so this is a really good, exciting call, especially in terms of speeches. I think product strategy is a really complex topic, and all the speeches from Ashley's introduction to the prepared speeches and even the table topics were adroit in sort of breaking down this complex and topic that sort of everyone, it feels like sometimes everyone approaches differently. So I learned a lot. I'd like to review a transcript and compare how everyone sort of approached the topic after the call. Just sort of the basics were, making good time. You started on time. The transitions were really good, and our Toastmaster Ashley, thanks for helping me out early on with some of the transition introductions when I was confused. And also, I just like this every time it happens. But so I just wanted to call out, Ashley, I appreciate it when you call out that folks are in different time zones, just recognizing that not everyone is in one place, not everyone's the same. Yeah, all of the table topic speeches were sort of really thoughtful and gave some really sort of juicy details and experiences. So I think I learned just as much from them as I did from the prepared speeches. I loved all the interaction in the chat during Erica's speech, and I love seeing that and would love to see more of that in future meetings. And there were the table topic questions I thought were really, really thoughtful, and I love hearing about specific experiences that people have had. So I love those kinds of table topic questions, and I think they're helpful. I think they're, at least for me, they're certainly very educational and helpful to hear how other people approach different topics. And yeah, one thing I had maybe it's something only I'm confused about, but wondering who's sort of responsible for the sort of keeping track and sharing the list of the people who participate in table topics and who's sort of responsible for sharing it. I feel like it's different from meeting to meeting. So maybe we can sort of define that as part of the vote counter role or a specific role going forward. That's something that at least I've noticed that I'm not 100% sure on where that responsibility lies, but obviously, of course, folks step up to take care of it every meeting. And I think that just looking at my notes, I think that covers everything. It was a really great call, I think. A really interesting topic. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marguerite, for giving us your general eval report. Also, everyone else as well who gave reports today, thank you so much. At this time, I want to go ahead and bring Amelia up to the screen so she can give us a report on who won the table topics for today.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Ashley. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for sending in all of your votes for table topics best speaker. Our winner for today is Svetlana. Congratulations, Svetlana, on having the best table topics.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amelia, for giving us the winner of our table topics today, Svetlana. Enjoy that little ego biscuit of being today's champion. Before I hand it over to our esteemed VPE, I just want to take a moment and say thank you to everyone for letting me be your Toastmaster for today. I also want to say thank you to everyone who was super nimble and jumping in and moving and adjusting to different roles today. I appreciate that so very, very much. And at this time, Lori, if you would like to come up on screen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And yes, you did an excellent job this week herding the cats and getting us all organized and rolling with the punches. For our next meeting, I'll put the meeting roll sheet in the chat so you all can access it. I am volunteering myself to be next week's Toastmaster, so I'm going to try to fill Ashley's big shoes. And our topic's going to be around what's in your product management tool belt. So this is something that I love to talk about, so I'm kind of excited to be the Toastmaster as well. We do have 3 speeches lined up. So Sarah, Kirsten, and Amelia will be giving speeches next week. In addition to that, you can also tell me what role you want. So I just put the form that we have in the chat. If you're going to be missing any meetings, knowing that the holidays season's coming up, please put it in this form. It is super helpful for me because I just don't assign you a role and then we don't have to try to fill your spot afterwards. So if you have anything like that or a specific role you want to do, let's get you in there and fill you out by the end of the year. And in addition to that, if you have any questions, I'll be sticking around after today's meeting and can answer any questions that you all have about pathways or just meetings in general or leadership, whatever you got. Feel free to stick around and ask us, and the leadership team will be happy to answer anything that you all have. And that is all I got today. So I think I didn't miss anything. If I did, feel free to call me out on it, but I can pass it back over to the Sergeant of Arms and she can dismiss us today.
Actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna grab it before it gets over to there. I want to thank everybody for a great meeting today and thank all of our guests that have come to check us out. We always like to get a little bit of feedback before we let you go. And maybe today you'd like to share with us how you found table topics or what you found most impactful about today's meeting. Let's see. Karthi Kiani, would you like to share?
Hi, could you say that again, please? Sorry.
Would you like to share what you found most impactful about today's meeting, or?
Oh, yes, definitely. And the first thing is I get to meet so many good talents in the product management industry. So I'm absolutely thrilled. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I got an opportunity to listen to all the great ideas and the thoughts from product managers from different industry. Because the product strategy and vision that we think, it is not restricted to one industry and it can be applied across domains. So I learned a good stuff, and this was really a useful session for me, and I would look forward to attend many more sessions like this. Thanks again for giving me this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your Sunday with us. All right. Thank you all again. I'm gonna hand it over to Shruti to wrap up the day.
Thank you, Madam President. What a great session today. Thank you everyone for all your speeches and participation. I hereby adjourn our session right now and stop recording this.